Good morning, Ram Nation. We are back with another edition of DNVR Rams Live. Of course, I am Justin Michael. Got a fun show for you guys. We're going to kind of be all over the map on this one. We're going to talk NBA Summer League. We're going to talk Fresno State and another late coaching change in the cycle. To have two happen in July is pretty rare. I'm not sure I've ever had that happen in the Mountain West, at least since I've been on the beat. I'm going to talk about whether Fresno State having this coaching change should kind of shift our expectations in terms of who is going to contend within the Mountain West. I'll talk about how it could potentially shift expectations for CSU. Obviously, they have both of these teams, Utah State and Fresno State, on the schedule who suffered these late coaching changes. CSU with 8 first-year coaches on the schedule, 10 first or second-year coaches, 7 home games. A lot to like about the schedule. A lot of reason why you could talk yourself into the Rams making a little bit of noise this year, especially with the continuity that they have within the staff, within the lineup as well. So we'll get into all of that. I did want to start with Summer League, though. Isaiah Stevens and David Roddy doing their things respectively. It's funny. I used to really not care about Summer League at all. I didn't really start getting into it, even as a lifelong NBA fan, until probably around 2017. It was when Gian Clavel got an opportunity with Miami and Dallas, and Emmanuel Amagbo got some run with the Warriors. That was the first time I remember consciously diving into the Summer League. I mean, I knew those guys really well. I broke their stories in terms of their NBA chances. So obviously I had a little bit of a vested interest there, but it's been really fun every day, especially not having as much baseball to watch as I used to. I mean, I got the gear on, obviously, today. I am a big baseball fan historically, but it's been tough. I'm a Rockies fan. I know I got the Griffey gear on today, but just with not having much to watch, it has been nice to have it. Isaiah Stevens, he played in the afternoon yesterday, and he did his thing. 12 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. He did have 5 turnovers, 2 of which came late. But even with the turnovers, they were kind of trying to do a little bit too much there at the end. He really showed his poise late in that game at a defensive rebound. Knocked down 2 threes in the fourth quarter, including one that was a step back from about 26 feet with the hand in his face. I've talked about this a lot the last couple of days, so I'm trying not to get too repetitive, but it is this weird balance, if you are Isaiah Stevens, of proving that, you know, you can be a system guy, you can be a role player that is going to come in, is going to provide, you know, quality minutes, is going to do the little things, but also you do have to have that ability to, you know, score at a high level, to kind of take over in small stretches. And I thought he did that. No, it wasn't a high volume scoring game, only had 5 attempts. But that's the thing, like game in and game out, he's going out there and he's impacting winning without putting 20 shots up, without having to dribble the hell out of the basketball. He just goes out there and he elevates everybody around him. And Seth Greenberg was just raving about him. I mean, at one point he talked about how Isaiah makes hard plays look simple. At another point, he was raving just about Isaiah's vision, his passing abilities, about the way that you can't speed him up. He always plays at his own pace. He was talking about how the offensive sets and the systems that he played in at CSU under Nico Medved really prepared him for this moment. And I'll be honest, he looks like a pro out there. He looks like somebody that could step in and run the second unit for an NBA offense right now. And as a Nuggets fan, man, it's a little bit frustrating. He's certainly night and day better than Pickett. Right in our backyard. And you fail to bring him in. I know they had a workout with him, but kudos to the Miami Heat. It seems like Zay has put himself in a nice position to at least get that 2-way contract. He's on the Exhibit 10 deal right now, which does give him some guaranteed money, but not a lot of stability. He's done exactly what we could have asked for. Really looks like a solid guy that can come in and impact winning now. David Roddy, he had 21.6 boards and 5 assists and a 1-point win over OKC yesterday. Had 10 in the fourth. Also had 8 of the first 15 points and a couple assists early, so he kind of sparked the the Suns initially and then closed it out, hit 3 game-winning free throws with less than a second remaining. Kind of reminded me of that Wyoming game in Laramie, where obviously he missed some late, and that's one that sits with him. I was glad to see him have kind of that moment of like redemption. I will say, I think Roddy has put himself in a spot to earn some minutes in the rotation with Phoenix. They're a mess, like as an organization, and I've been a little frustrated for David that he's had to go from Memphis to Phoenix. I thought Phoenix would be a better spot than it was in terms of a landing spot for him coming out of Memphis, but obviously they were just kind of a mess last year. In this game yesterday, didn't try and do too much. He drove and kicked it out to open shooters, stepped up and hit a couple of big threes. There was one point where he had missed a couple of shots in a row, actually missed a 3, got his own board, and instead of jacking up another shot, he swung it out, ended up getting an assist. I mean, the nice thing about David, about Isaiah, is these guys are just going to go out and they're going to fill their roles. Now, their roles are going to be a little bit different. David obviously was a high volume scorer in the Mountain West Player of the Year. He's got the athleticism, he's got the strength, he's got the size. You can see it on some of these highlight dunks that he's had the last couple of years. He does need to shoot the 3 ball with a little bit more consistency than he has, at least in NBA games. But he's had these moments where he's made some huge plays. He's really, really savvy. He's unselfish. And honestly, guys, like in a league that's filled with players that lack self-awareness, I would think that there would, especially be on a contending team, some opportunities, guys like for on contending teams, there should be some opportunities for guys like David Roddy, like Isaiah Stevens. We're going to be team first. They're not going to be drama. You don't have to worry about any Ja Morant type incidents of these guys going and getting in trouble, pulling a gun at the strip club. I mean, it's just not in their DNA. That's not how they are. Roddy can hoop. He just needs a little bit of consistent run, a little bit of stability around him. Certainly wouldn't hurt the cause, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun seeing these guys. It was cool yesterday to see them both star. It was nice that the games happened to be at different times, so I got to, lock in and watch them both. If you're curious, Phoenix will play Milwaukee on Friday. That's at 1 p.m. on NBA TV. They'll play Sacramento on Saturday. That's 12 p.m. Mountain on NBA TV. Isaiah Stevens will wrap up with the Heat against Toronto. That'll be on Friday at 7 p.m. That game is on ESPN+. Cool for those guys, man. Cannot help but smile when I see David and Isaiah do their thing. A couple of guys that did it right, that stayed loyal to their programs, and they've got to stick it through. It's not shocking that they haven't gone into it's not like they were lottery picks. It's not situations where you're going to get in and get the keys handed to you, but they are guys that'll fight for every minute, and they're going to make the most of their opportunities. Certainly rooting for them. It's cool to have some CSU guys out in Phoenix too, just because of our PHNX sister outlet out there. They had an interview with David that you can see on the PHNX YouTube. I shared that on Twitter at DNVR_Rams. We're going to move on here. We are going to talk about CSU football. We're going to talk Fresno State. I'm going to give a little bit of insight into my background with Tim Skipper, who is now the interim head coach for the Bulldogs. Longtime assistant was Jim McElwain's associate head coach at CSU. Real quick, life can be chaotic, guys. It certainly has been chaotic for me of late. Moving's been stressful. We've had car troubles. It's been one of those situations where I've just wanted to rip my hair out at times. You don't want to be that guy, though. You don't want to be a bummer. You don't want to be the dude that's no fun to be around. It's important to take a deep breath every minute, to choose a chill mindset, take some deep breaths, maybe breathe in that smooth Fort Collins air. And then once I put myself in the right state of mind, when I'm feeling good, maybe I crack open an ice cold Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose Coors Light and crack open that crisp and refreshing can as cold as the Rockies. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I also want to shout out to Circa Sportsbook. I can't say enough good things about Circa, the sportsbook, or the resort and casino out in Vegas. What's awesome about Circa is they strive to give you some of the best splits around. You might get minus 115, minus 120 odds elsewhere. Not at Circa. They say, nah, they're going to hit you with that minus 110. completely transparent, great customer service. You can't ask for much more from a sportsbook. Download the app at circusports.com. Circus Sports Bets can be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circus Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Or you can visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. Shout out to everybody in the Toyota chats. I appreciate you. Brendan says Suns need to give Roddy minutes this season. I think he's going to have an opportunity. I mean, the one thing about Isaiah and David, I think that's going to be beneficial, especially if they can stick around on some of these teams that have playoff aspirations, is that it's hard to get quality role guys and retain them with this second apron. Now, if you're a guy that you can be on the team on the cheap but make an impact, I mean, that's really going to help you. Shout out to Charlie. He says, good morning, J-Mike. Appreciate your coverage. Thoughts on Zay getting some national love in the Summer League? It's about time, man. It's about time that he gets recognized. I mean, he had to prove himself. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here trying to pat myself on the back. I pointed out that there were going to be some legitimate obstacles to him getting a chance. He needed to be in the right situation. I think being on a team like Miami, who has aspirations, who's looking for quality role guys in a win now window, like that all needed to go right. He had to prove that he wasn't going to be a defensive liability. And he needed to show that like he can get to his spots in the same way that he did collegiately. Now, I don't think he's going to drive on guys quite as frequently, but you can see, I mean, he had a runner with a couple of minutes left in the game to, I think it was put him up like 5 or 7 at that point. A couple other times he's been able to create space with a step back three. Shooting touch has been awesome. He's 57% from the floor, 75% from deep right now. I mean, it was about time. Like, we knew he was going to translate as a facilitator. He just needed to show that he could do everything else at the same level. And they really do look solid. WC in the Twitter chat says, how will the line play be for CSU this year? Should be solid. Not really on topic, but should be solid. They've got great depth within that 2 deep, probably the best state of the O-line overall since Norvell came to town. You got 3 starters back, a couple of guys that I think are going to be NFL linemen, and Jacob Gardner and Drew Moss. So all intriguing, some intriguing young guys coming up through the system as well. That's a good segue, I suppose, into football. Fresno State, who was picked to finish second in the league, bombshell of a report this week. Jeff Tedford stepping down. Not the first time this has happened. He's had some health stuff before. I think it's like the 3rd time total in the last 5 years since he's had to take some type of absence, but it kind of seems like this might be the final hurrah, like the real goodbye. He's one of the more underrated coaches in all of college football. You just look at what he did at Cal. I mean, they won 7 or more games in 9 of 11 seasons. Cal hasn't been worth a damn since he was gone. His work with Kyle Bowler, like, took the dude from being a mess to being a 1st-round pick with the Ravens. Fresno State, I mean, you look at Fresno State, it was a total mess before he got there. Largely a pretty successful program, like going back to the late 90s under Pat Hill. They were a thorn in the side of CSU. A couple of those double-digit win season years, like you look, and their one loss was to Fresno State. They beat the Buffs a couple of times when they were a top 20 team as well. I mean, hard coach, a program that has great local support and identity, but it did fall off pretty hard late in the Tim DeRuyter era. I mean, you remember he had success early with Derek Carr, and then by like 2016, like I think they went 1-11 that year. It was ugly. They had a game in Fort Collins where they lost, what was it, 37-0. And it was like 37-0 halfway through the 3rd. Bobo called off the Dogs. They had like 500 yards of total offense. It was bad. It was weird too, because like I said, Fresno is a team that you expect to contend. You bring in Tedford, he comes in by 2017, they've won 10 plus games. I mean, to go from a 1-11 team to a 10-win team in less than a calendar year before the portal era too, mind you. So to have that type of change is just huge. He's one of the classier guys in college football, great quarterback coach, won 9 or more games in 4 out of 5 seasons at Fresno State. I wanted to give him some love because I think he's one of the more underappreciated and just generally really quality coaches that doesn't get the love that he deserves on a national level. Without him, it's going to be Tim Skipper. I mentioned that earlier. Skip's a great dude. He's a Fresno State alum, was a linebacker for the Bulldogs in the late 90s. Began his coaching career there in the mid 2000s as a running back coach. Also worked at New Mexico and some other places, but he was actually the running back coach when Jim McElwain was OC at Fresno State in like 07, 08. If you remember, CSU beat Fresno State in the New Mexico Bowl. They had a sick running back that I think went on to play for the Chargers, Ryan Matthews. He got kind of dinged up that year, but he was a Heisman candidate. When McElwain was hired at CSU, he brought Skip over, named him as assistant head coach. He's the linebackers coach as well. Skipper, funny enough, is kind of the reason that I'm here today. He is who convinced Tom Ellers, the former director of football operations, to give me a shot as an intern on the staff. In typical Justin fashion, I met him at the spring game my senior year of high school. He was recruiting my good buddy Jake Bennett, and I just went up and I bombarded him. I just bombarded him with 8 million thoughts on the state of the program, why I had higher expectations going into 2013 after our 2012, Max first season. And I was kind of right, to be honest. I mean, it started slow in 2013, but they figured it out. And obviously 2014 was awesome. And Skip was just so cool about it. Like, he could have just told me to piss off, to go away. Like, he had no reason to talk to me. Jake was going to commit either way. It's not like I was part of that process. I was just there to support my buddy. And I don't know, like, it's funny how all this works out, all these years later. Now he's the interim head coach at Fresno State. I'm covering the league officially. I'm happy for the guy. He's earned this opportunity. He was a great coach at CSU, followed Mac to Florida, then CMU before going back to his alma mater at Fresno State. He was the interim coach when they won the bowl game this past winter. Could not be more stoked for a guy that I've known for a long time. As far as how much this changes expectations with Fresno State within the league, I don't know if it does a ton. I will say, losing a coach of Tedford's caliber, while I do have a ton of respect for Skipper, I think he should be the guy that gets the permanent gig, or at least gets an opportunity, if he can have some success this year. Like, losing somebody of Tedford's status, that's got to matter. That's got to matter a little bit. Maybe it's in the margin slightly in terms of just how prepared a team is. Are you going to be as disciplined? What about, when it comes down to it in these tight games? They were so good. I mean, especially like with Jake Haener, but even the last couple of years, they were so good in those clutch situations, like 2 minutes, game on the line, we got to go 80 yards and score. It always felt like Tedford's teams did that. And for a team that was picked to finish second in the league, team that has, an all preseason all conference quarterback in Mikey Keene and running back in Malik Sherrod, I still think they're going to be really competitive. I do wonder if maybe they drop to like third or fourth. I mean, it's very similar to Wyoming's situation, as Taylor says in the Toyota chat. I think it's fair to expect them to maybe take a small step back. I also don't think that this is a situation where if you're CSU, you're like, oh, thank God, now that's a winnable game. We're going to be favored going into Fresno. That's still going to be a tough one. That is a game I'm really looking forward to. It's kind of hard to get to Fresno. They got a small airport and it's low key expensive, but depending on if the Rams could potentially be in the mix, I mean, that late November game could theoretically be really important. Torrey Horton going back to his hometown. He's never had a chance to play in Fresno. I know he's looking forward to it. We asked him about it out in media days, and he lit up. Like, he does take it personally that Fresno State did not offer him out of high school. So I'm interested to see kind of how all of that plays out. But I will say, between this move, I mean, the schedule as a whole, there's a lot of reasons to have quite a bit of optimism for CSU's potential of making a little bit of noise. And at the very least, playing games in November that matter for, I mean, they were last year too, obviously, with the chance to be in a bowl game, but like, it's been a long time since they've been in that situation where you're playing games in November, hoping to possibly play your way into a conference championship. And I don't want to get carried away. I don't think the expectation should necessarily be that this team should win the Mountain West, but I do think that, especially with the continuity that they have and everybody else lacks, with the way the schedule continues to just get quirkier and quirkier in favor of the green and gold, there's real reason for optimism. Nick wants to know, will this O-line be able to open up the run game? I think so. I'm really intrigued by this offensive line. They've got great size. More than anything, they've got great depth in the backfield, which is something they haven't had happen for a couple of years now. They're going to have to run the ball with more consistency if they are going to be a team that makes some noise. Joey B says expectation should be a bowl game for the 2024 Rams football period. Other programs are in change limbo. CSU has some stability. Great point, and it leads me to what we're about to get into. Real quick, I do want to shout out Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, for years, trucks have been a part of their DNA. They build durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there is a Toyota truck that's just right for you, like the all-new 2024 Tacoma or the return of the 2024 Land Cruiser. They have 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner, 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Not to be outdone, Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Also want to shout out the homies at Raising Cane's. I might have to go get myself some Raising Cane's today, some chicken fingies. Sound pretty good. On your mark, get set, eat, make a pit stop at Raising Cane's for craveable hand-battered chicken fingers. They're always cooked to order, made just for you, racing for delicious chicken finger meals served up fast. That buttery Texas toast, those crispy crinkle-cut fries, doesn't get any better. Don't forget about that creamy coleslaw and, of course, the secret Cane's sauce. For cooked-to-order hand-battered chicken fingers, race into Raising Cane's. Turbocharge your chicken fingers. Get them even faster by ordering online at raisingcanes.com or through the mobile app, Raising Cane's Chicken Finger. One love. All right. I kind of alluded to it there before the break. Joey B with the comment in the Toyota chat. Expectations should be a bowl game for the 2024 Rams, period. Other programs are in change limbo. CSU has some stability. That's the weird spot we're in as CSU supporters, is that on paper, in theory, everything lines up for CSU to make a massive leap. You have 7 games on the schedule at home. First time that's ever happened. 8 first-year coaches. You only play one coach within the league slate that's established. It's Troy Calhoun of Air Force, the most established coach in the league. And obviously, Air Force pretty much has owned CSU since he took that gig, 17 years ago now? I mean, he's been there forever. Weirdly enough, Jay Norvell, now the second longest tenured coach in the entire league. It's insane. And like for most teams in this situation, I think that there would be a lot of pounding on the table of like, this is our year. We are going to make a leap. We're going to make a run to the title game. And you could see the path to it. Like, you could very easily see how CSU, with the experience they have on offense, assuming they run the ball better, assuming they stay healthy, assuming the defense can be a little bit better in man and key situations and all that, but you got BFN, you got Torrey Horton, like, you're going to put up some points. You could talk yourself into, CSU just outscoring everyone they play, getting hot at the right time, making a run to the Mountain West Championship game. I mean, again, you only play one team in the league with an established, or two, I guess, at the moment, depending on what happens with New Mexico, with an established quarterback from last year. Like, there's so much to like about the Rams on paper. And still, there's this part of me in the back of my mind that's constantly waiting for the other shoe to fall. Like, how is CSU going to shoot themselves in the foot? Like, how is Ram life going to come into play here? Because it's just been inevitable these last couple of years. Even when it seems like you get a little bit of positive momentum going, boom, you have Utah State happen, you have UNLV happen, you have Hawaii happen. And instead of being, a 7-5 year that feels like this great success, it's a 5-7 year, and it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back constantly. I will say, I think at very minimum, you've got to go to a bowl game. I mean, you'd like to win the bowl game, but there's a lot of weird circumstances that could happen depending on what bowl you're in. You never know like which players are actually going to play. That whole thing can be a mess. You gotta win. You gotta go to a bowl. You gotta go to a bowl. You gotta have success at home, and you gotta win a rivalry game. Whether it's CU, whether it's Wyoming. In a perfect world, it would be both, all three, if you want to throw Air Force into the window. Considering we have one rivalry win since 2016, though, I'm just gonna start with you gotta go to a bowl. You gotta have a winning record at home, and you've got to win one of those rivalry games in Canvas Stadium. You have to take advantage of this massive opportunity that you have in front of you. And it's not an easy slate, even though you do have a lot of things that are in your favor. The non-conference schedule obviously is tough. Like opening at Texas is brutal. Having, CU come in, that's a massive game that you're going to put a lot of focus and energy into. And depending on how that goes, like that could be a situation that like really ignites the team. Like obviously if you play well, if you won it, it could be something that sparks an incredible run, kind of like what we saw in 2014. It could also be a situation where if you come up short, it can be deflating. And I do like that it's not the first week of the season. I did feel like every time the RMS was week 1, and then you have all this buildup for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then if you come up short, it kind of felt like it took a month to get over that hangover of it. But with the position that you're in, with the continuity that you have, and with the way that this schedule lines up, there's outside of like a ton of major injuries, and knock on wood that doesn't happen. The expectation has to be that this team makes a leap. You jump to 5 wins this past year from 3 the year before that. Like you got to jump again to, I think, probably at least 7 wins. Now, if you went 6-6, but you beat some rivals in there, and like, yes, there could be some situations that you nitpick at, but overall that season probably feels pretty good. But you've got to find a way to win some of these games. I mean, as TJ mentions in the Toyota chat, Air Force is really, really young this year. At this point, I kind of give them the respect from brand recognition alone that Calhoun's going to figure it out and find a way to have that team be competitive, in their schedule, much like CSU, pretty favorable within the league. But I mean, Air Force is young. Wyoming, they've got a great defense. They got Harrison Whaley in the backfield, who's going to be a stud. And I think Gillenberg at tight end is a really talented player, and maybe opening up that offense allows them to score a little bit and be a little bit more relevant. But I mean, they're unproven. They're raw at quarterback. Like, assuming that they're going to be able to be the same type of competitive team that they were with Craig Bolt, that's a big assumption. And you could say the same thing about Fresno State with Tim Skipper. I mean, I love Skip to death. I owe him so much. But again, just assuming that he is going to be able to carry on what was built and established under Tedford that's a big assumption. I mean, we saw it here in Fort Collins. Fairchild wasn't able to do it with Sonny. I mean, there's infinite examples of that. Shout out to the trolls in the Toyota chat as well. Keep my name in your mouth. Just don't bite your tongue while you chew it. But I appreciate everybody locked in. All I'm saying is that there's reason for excitement. And if things don't go well, it's certainly going to turn up the pressure. I think the fact that you have an AD change obviously adds another little wrench into this whole situation. Like, while he did have an established relationship, John Weber, with Jay Norvell, that goes back multiple years, it's not like he's just coming in cold. That would make it probably even more intense, but it does put pressure on CSU having success in other sports like basketball. That puts pressure. Like, you want to continue this momentum. You want to remain relevant. And obviously, with potentially what could happen these next couple of years with conference realignment and musical chairs, like, you cannot fall into irrelevancy. And it's just scary because it feels like there's all these little subplots that are kind of tied together within this 2024 season. And there's a world in which everything goes right, and it's this historic year, and it's this incredible run, and it ends up being all kinds of fun. And there's also a world in which CSU doesn't live up to what should be the expectation. And if that happens, things could definitely get a little bit tricky. We'll kind of have to see. I feel good. I feel excited. And a lot of that has to do with having continuity within the trenches, with having a quarterback that I believe has all the tools to kind of take this team to the next level. And frankly, being surrounded by offensive talent that just hasn't been there in these past couple years. Like Torrey is Torrey. Torrey is one of the best receivers in the entire country. I mean, 2022, he was essentially a one-man band. You add a little bit to the supporting cast with Lewis Brown and Justice Ross Simmons a year ago. Obviously, neither of those guys still in the picture, but you bring in a guy in Armani Winfield, who is one of the highest rated recruits in the country. A couple years back, got all kinds of talent, great athlete. Donovan Ollie, we've seen firsthand what he can do, and torch CSU and Pullman. He had a great spring, doing all the things right. And, defensively, and somebody in the Twitter chat has asked, what should we expect with the defense, especially without Mo Camara? We'll see. That I will say, it is hard for me to sit here and say confidently, I think the defense is going to be better, having lost, one of the better pass rushers that's ever played for CSU. I mean, statistically speaking, he's up there with Clark Hagans, with Joey Porter. Him. Those are some of the most talented guys. Shaq Barrett, obviously, that have ever suited up. Losing him, it feels hard to think they would take a step forward. But they do have a lot of experience in that secondary. If you can be a little bit more consistent there, if you can get a nice leap from some of these younger guys like, Boom Jock and newer Gatkuth, I think there's a world in which CSU is competent enough defensively. I don't think they're going to be locked down or anything like that. I mean, they really haven't been locked down since probably the Lubick era. It's been a long time since they've had a defense I would consider genuinely stout. But, I like these guys. I like Howell and Blackburn. I'm really intrigued by some of the young talent. I thought Chase Wilson had a great year at middle linebacker. You just kind of need them to do enough, because I think the offense is going to be solid. Can you be good enough defensively that if you take a lead late, can you hang on for 45 seconds, which obviously last year they could not. You twice had situations where you go down and mount a really clutch scoring drive and you find a way to shoot yourself in the foot. So they've got to be better in those tight games. If they can find a way to steal one on the road, then all of a sudden it opens up a lot of possibility. I think you've basically got to win, especially within the league slate. You've got to win your home games. You got to beat Nevada on the road. And then can you steal one of Air Force or Fresno State? Because remember, Oregon State doesn't count towards the conference standing. So you're basically playing 5 non-conference games this year. I kind of like that. I like that, not essentially half the schedule doesn't count towards the league standings. I like that the games that don't count are early. So, maybe if you can get hot late, there's a lot about this schedule to believe that if CSU can get the ball rolling here, come November, they're going to be playing relevant football games, which at this point, that's kind of all we can ask for as CSU fans. I want so much more than that. I want to see them push for championships. And again, I think there's a world in which CSU could compete for a championship this season, even not having been to a bowl since all the way back in 2017. I also know the history says that CSU finds a way to screw it up, but God, is this program not due? Are we not due for a little bit of luck to go our way? I mean, I feel like we used all of the program's luck combined between Washington State and the Boise State Hail Mary. And it's those two crazy wins over a 10-year period have resulted in us having to atone with all kinds of brutal, unlucky and unfortunate losses in other ways. But basically the time to win is now. The all of this summarized is that the time to win is now. Now we'll have to see how the season plays out. There are factors that could come into play that change what the expectations would be. Major injuries, obviously, that's going to change realistically what you should expect to do. I think we're going to know a lot about this team by early October. I mean, obviously, how they fare in those big September games is going to be huge. You got to take care of business against, UTEP and Northern Colorado. You can't have the unforgivable type loss that CSU has had way too many times in the Bobo and Adazio era. And frankly, even Norvell in 2022, Sacramento State coming into your stadium, kicking the absolute shit out of you. That should never happen as CSU. maybe it's a competitive game, but you shouldn't be getting smacked around the way that you did. It's a completely different team. So like, I'm not worried about that. Also, playing Northern Colorado, a little bit different than playing a contender in the Big Sky. But there's a lot in place for this team to have a strong season. I think the expectation should be that they're much improved. Like, you doubled your points per game last year. You went from 23 to 26 points per game. I think they want to be well over 30 points a game. You know, they want to be well over like 500 yards of offense. Got to run the ball, you know, average more than 100 yards, maybe not individually, but collectively with a three-headed monster. I think you'll see Kobe Johnson, Avery Morrow, and Justin Marshall, maybe a little bit of Damian Henderson as well. But I just have so much skepticism in the back of my mind after being spurned so many times. And it's this weird feeling of like, I can see what is in place. I can see the reason why, if you're a dreamer, you could talk yourself into. It's all there for this team to go have this special run. And I also can understand why, especially if you followed this program for years and years, that like, if you have the position of I'll believe it when I see it. And I think both of those positions are fair right now. It's a weird time. It's an exciting time. I definitely want to see them take advantage of it. But 7 home games, you've got great kickoffs, got a ton of talent. We'll see. I'm really excited. Make sure you guys keep an eye on the podcast feed. I caught up with Kevin Lytle yesterday. I'll get that podcast into your feed later on. That'll be audio only. We'll go live again tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. DNVR Sports YouTube. So make sure that you're locked into that. Rams FTC in the Toyota chat says, I think this is a pivotal year for CSU and CU. Both coaches could and should have better seasons and would be sought after by other programs. Here's my thing. If CSU is in a position where their coaches are being highly considered for bigger schools, or like other schools want what we're doing, that means we're finally winning. It's been well over 6 years since we've been in that spot. Like, you got to go back to like when 2015, 2016, when Bobo was allegedly flirting with like Mizzou or whatever. I mean, then by the end, he was just trying to hang on. Nick Reese in the Toyota chat says, Rams were 3 plays away from an 8-4 season last year. 1 stop against CU, 1 missed sack against UNLV, and 1 stop against Hawaii. If they can get stability, they really have an opportunity. I'm with you. I mean, that really is the case. You could argue that, I mean, even if the Boise State game was a fluke, like let's say that game should have been a loss, at very minimum, you should have been a 7-5 team last year with an opportunity to win that 8th game in a bowl. You bring back all your top end talent if you can learn from the things that held you back. And again, like, everybody in the offseason tends to say the right things, but there was a sense of honesty with Jack Howell and Torrey Horton out at media days, just knowing that like those guys, it wasn't, sometimes you get them on and, you know, they're just like, we've got to be better, but they don't actually articulate what the mistakes are, what they're doing to try and clean it up. Like, they know exactly what held them back and exactly what they need to change, what they need to build off of. Now, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to go out and do it. There's an opportunity. That's really all it comes down to. I can't wait. I'm over the offseason at this point. You know, there's only so much what if, only so many hypothetical scenarios you can run through. The return of the NCAA football video game series, that helps a little bit. Not going to lie, that helps a little bit. Going to log in tonight. I've had some questions on whether I'm going to stream. I'll try to at some point. I'll be honest, I'm not like a huge avid gamer. I'm not phenomenal. I'm pretty good at college football. But like, I'd have to learn how to do that. I'd have to sign up for Twitch and all that. Yeah, if there actually is a demand, if there really are that many people that would be interested in you know, a stream of me playing the game, and, you know, we could have a chat and all that, like, while it's happening, then I'll make it happen. I'm a man of the people. I'll be honest though, I don't know if I'm good enough to where you're gonna be wanting to follow me. You know, like, I see some of these professional gamers and what they do, and like, that's definitely a whole other level. That said, it might humanize me a little bit when you see me throw a pick on the very first play of the game or something like that. But I'm having a blast. Before we get out of here, there was one question in the Toyota chat I meant to get to from way back when. It just asked me what my thoughts on the Ike Larson situation is at Utah State. He had a very cryptic tweet this morning. Came out at Mountain West Media Days and basically said on the record that he was going to stick around in Logan. Now basically tweeted this morning like, yeah, we'll see. I kind of think he'll go elsewhere. I mean, he is genuinely one of the better safeties in the entire country. I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus from Utah State or anything like that. It's so late in the cycle that most teams are largely full. But for a guy like Ike Larson, especially in the NIL era where scholarship total is essentially irrelevant, if you want a guy to come in, they can just, even if they don't have enough scholarships, somebody will just pay his tuition for him. Like, it's a completely different world. That's not going to happen for the whole team, but that could happen for somebody like Ike Larson or Jalen Royals at receiver. I mean, if they lose those guys, they are going to be in a really tough spot. And that is huge for CSU's finale if he leaves. Obviously, senior day, that's another game that I think is one of kind of the quietly key games for CSU's schedule. Is Utah State's been a thorn in CSU's side now for the last half decade. They've won a lot of really weird, tight games against the Rams. That's one of the teams like Air Force, like Wyoming, that if CSU is going to be a real player in the Mountain West, they've got to get over the hump and start beating those teams consistently. # wants to know, are we getting Big Noon kickoff or something of like it in FOCO this year for CU? We'll see. I know that's also Utah State that day, Oregon State, Washington State, Alabama plays Wisconsin, Texas A&M has a big game against someone as well. If CSU beat Texas, then yeah, they would absolutely come. I just wonder if they're going to come to Fort Collins, because then it can't just be the Dion show the way that it was last year. I mean, you wouldn't have even known there were two teams in the Rocky Mountain Showdown based on the way that ESPN covered the game last year. It was really disappointing, honestly. Like, I was super excited to watch that, and I don't even know if I finished it. Probably about an hour and 20 minutes in, I was like, all right, this is enough Dion glazing for me in one day. But I'm sure there will be a ton of national focus on that game, whether game day is here or not. Obviously, getting that prime time window on CBS at 5 p.m. is huge. It's the biggest game in Fort Collins this century. At least the biggest game against CU since 2002, if not the biggest ever. We'll see. We'll have to see. That's all I've got for you guys this morning. Much love to everybody that's locked in with us. I appreciate all you in the Toyota chat. I appreciate all of you if you're listening to the audio later on. Again, we'll go live again tomorrow on Friday at 10 a.m. Always proud to be y'all. Much love. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.